traveling in a caravan to distant destinations, traversing thousands of kilometers to cover new horizons, garner new allies, and build trade was a commonplace thing in times ago. People would load their worldly belongings and hitch the animals to the carts and spend months on the road. A modern day group of people undertook a somewhat similar journey for somewhat similar reasons.
Hello and welcome. I'm standing in the foreground of the Borobudur Temple, Central Java, Indonesia. This is the largest Buddhist temple in the world. Why am I here? Let me show you. I'm here for the ASEAN India Car Rally. We're going to be driving from Singapore to India by road. It's going to be an epic journey, something that you do once in a lifetime. I'm lucky to be doing this the second time. We've got 124 participants from 10 different ASEAN countries plus India together on this epic journey. Why don't you also travel along with me?
A lot goes into the preparation of an event of such a magnitude.
We had to provide 30 plus Mahindra vehicles, and these vehicles were going to go across different countries, different terrains, and obviously, flying the Indian tricolor. So that was a tough responsibility, and therefore it was difficult. The reason it was easy is this was a fantastic opportunity to put our sort of name across borders, across various ASEAN countries, and this kind of opportunity doesn't come your way very easily.
Apart from routine service and maintenance, these cars are an year-old cars, and at the end of the day, we didn't want anything to break on the journey. So preventive maintenance was what was done, and a little bit of accessorizing the car with roof racks and antennas for the radios.
A lot of people work hard behind the scenes in preparation of day zero. The festivities began the night before with the Indonesians setting the tone of the event with pomp and splendor at the welcome dinner. With the Parmarbanan temple as a backdrop, the participants witnessed a breathtaking inaction of the Ramayana. The colorful costumes and music with the intense performance had all the participants enwrapped. It built an excitement for the days to come. Needless to say, it got everyone itching to hit the road. At the first lunch halt in Borobudur, spirits were high and the essence of the ASEAN India came through when the local band sang their version of Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, accent and all.
First stop, Borobudur in Central Java, getting authentic Indonesian food. I'm scrunching all the wafer thin, what we like to call papad, for the gado-gado. So I'm going to dig into some really great Indonesian food here.
The lunch was a preamble to the temple visit. Borobudur, built in the 9th century, is the largest Buddhist temple in the world and a must on many Buddhist pilgrimages. The temple itself is an awe-inspiring structure, and the massive Buddha head at the top paints a stunning picture. The ASEAN Rally was not only about visiting places, improving road connectivity in the region, and spreading trade. The rally is also about people to people and the coming together of nations to unite and build a better future.
These are the kind of things that happen, that need to happen more and more to open up borders, to have cross-country collaborations, people visiting each other's countries and increasing trade. I think this needs to happen more and more, and we are absolutely delighted with the kind of response that we got.
The message got firmly embedded in Indonesia, quite literally, with all the team leaders planting a tree which would remain there for the years to come as a strong reminder of the event and its purpose. After the fun and festivities and culture, we set off to Suryakarta, the end of the Indonesian leg. From here, all the participants flew to Singapore. Singapore is where the actual road journey began, 28 gleaming XUV 500s and 3 Scorpios shining in their livery on the F1 pit lane.
The cars are lined up and being flagged off from the pit lane of the F1 track in Singapore. It's fantastic here. There's quite a buzz. Everybody's excited and we're just waiting for the official flag off ceremony right now.
With the sound of firecrackers and festoons flying everywhere, the event began. The Singapore leg was just a short run of 25 kilometers to the Malaysian border. Now everyone anticipates a lot of time for formalities at a border crossing. But in the spirit of cooperation, the countries made everything easy. And with our advance team having cleared all the paperwork, we sailed through. So getting into Malaysia took no time at all. The Malaysian side was excited and it was apparent from the welcome ceremony. The participants got into the groove, boogieing to the local beat. The highway in Malaysia is spectacular, and to be in a convoy of 31 cars being led by none other than the Prime Minister's cavalcade is exciting. We were hitting speeds of 140 kilometers an hour. The XUV 500s cruised comfortably, and the 330 kilometers to Putrajaya just flew by. The participants were all happy and merry, singing on the radio. And their songs seem to have invoked the rain gods. Putrajaya Prime Minister's office, a stunning location, was unfortunately one we couldn't enjoy in its full glory, as the rain had everyone running for cover.
Hello, Roja.
Great pace and ease of driving on the Indonesian roads gave everyone breathing time. And with all the cars connected on radio, the participants began to banter. A familiarity began to grow with introductions being made, and the 268-kilometer journey through Ipoh, mostly in the dark, had everyone wide awake and singing. Visiting these places was truly amazing for us to see how the Hindu culture and religion had spread into the region. The temples in Indonesia and the one in Ipoh with the priest of South Indian descent got us thinking. Our ancestors in their caravans didn't have highways or couldn't do 140 kilometers an hour, but had still fanned out into regions far and wide to spread their beliefs. What adventurers they must have been. But the bigger thought was that even with facilities at hand today, people don't normally drive out on such long journeys, and much less in a group as large as ours. We were also adamant on blazing our own trail. Waving to people lined up on the roads and handing out ASEAN caps had become a part of daily routine. There was a message to be spread, and the participants were intent on making the reach as wide as possible.
So now we're just at the gate at the border of Thailand, and I think you can hear from the sounds that there's a very, very warm welcome for the ASEAN Car Rally here in Thailand.
The serpentine lines of people waving the rally by and sailing through borders with no traffic lights to go through and wailing siren cop cars leading us through had all of us feeling like VIPs. A small discussion had already begun on how difficult it would be to go back to life as normal. But for now, it was enter Thailand. A sumptuous lunch and a small ceremony at the Sadao border of Thailand made the participants feel very welcome. First night halt was at a small border town called Hat Yai. An early arrival gave us time to relax. The next day, the run to Phuket had everyone charged and eager to get there with the destination on mind and the festivities in night in store. The ceremony at night had a lot of music and it brought out the lighter side of everyone and got them bonding on the dance floor. Dance really eliminates all language barriers and soon all the participants were in a conga line. With all the music and fun, the revelry continued late into the night. With 853 kilometers to cover to Bangkok, after a late night, an early start wasn't on everyone's menu, but a discipline had been set and the convoy left on time. They had mastered the art of packing and unpacking their cars by now. A lot of radio chatter on the fun to be had in Bangkok kept the spirits up, and a lunch halt at a very unique restaurant had everyone smiling. The large distance was made to seem short with Visut, the Thai team leader, organizing the fuel and rest stops brilliantly. A great pace ensured that we actually hit Bangkok half an hour before schedule. With so many people and 31 cars, that is truly an achievement. With all the late nights and early mornings, the extra day off in Bangkok was what everyone was looking forward to. The rest day had only one thing on the agenda, a ceremonial flag-off. It was an impressive one against the backdrop of the palace, with the Deputy Prime Minister of Thailand and other dignitaries waving the cars off. After the rest day in Bangkok, the group was rejuvenated and the rally headed off towards Cambodia in great spirits with another double night halt due at Siem Reap.
We're here at the Cambodian border and it's a truly royal welcome here. We've got the police force lined up. There's quite a crowd. Everybody's excited to bring us into their country. I've been standing here on Twitter and sending up the pictures non-stop because even I can't believe this kind of welcome that we're getting. And of course, being in Cambodia, the thing I'm looking forward to most is Angkor Wat.
As we crossed borders, we noticed there was a curiosity building about this group of people that were driving from Singapore to India. It seemed incredulous to most, and it set off Chinese whispers throughout the region, making people come out in hordes to watch this convoy drive by. The convoy seemed to be achieving its purpose of spreading a message throughout the region. The drive from the border of Cambodia to Siem Reap is a short one through narrow single-lane highways and quite a contrast to the wide expressways in Thailand. Rak, the Cambodian team leader, was worried with the driving side changing over and animals and people to watch out for. But with the experienced drivers, the convoy did well and adjusted smoothly. Once they hit Siem Reap, everyone got into cycle rickshaws and headed off to the night market.
So finally some time off from driving and the work behind the scenes that's happening all day and all night for now 8 days. It's the 9th day and I've got some time to see the town that I'm actually in, Siem Reap, by night. Ooh. Yuck. It's a really interesting little market with tons of things stored all over. In fact, pretty confusing because I'm trying to figure out what I really need.
After all the shopping and haggling to bargain the price down, we settled for a great massage. $2 for an hour was too hard to resist. After the rest, everyone was up bright and early and excited about the visit to Angkor Wat. Angkor Wat is a majestic sight for sure, and words fall short to describe the kind of response it evokes. The normally rowdy bunch were mostly silent, absorbing all the sights and sounds and just the air that carried hundreds of years of history in it. Angkor Wat is the world's largest Hindu temple complex and a symbol of the Khmer Empire at its peak.
It's a magical feeling being here amongst the ruins of the Thar Prom temple and wondering what life must have been like all those years ago when this was built. It's amazing to see the trees that have overgrown the temple. Now this is particularly interesting because this is where Tomb Raider was shot. So head on inside and see if you can catch up with Angelina Jolie.
Although Angkor Wat is the one that's most famous, it's the Angkor Thom with its overgrown trees and broken down labyrinth of chambers that caught my fancy. In the spirit of cooperation, even the cars were allowed up close to the temple for the very first time. The time spent at the temple had everyone in a pensive mood. Having experienced one of the wonders of the world, a lot of conversation ensued on the intermingling of cultures and the spread of Hinduism throughout the region. I too became pensive, and seeing the streets lined with kids through my windscreen, it made me feel like we were fulfilling the purpose we had set out for. The future generations waving us on would go back to school and learn about the connections between the ASEAN countries and the fact that one could drive through them. To manage a convoy of so many people and so many cars is not easy, and to hear the sounds of "Chalo Chalo" was becoming a norm. This was the shepherd's call to get the group herded into the cars.
Hello, car number 6 and 7 are ready. We are ready to go for another destination.
People of 11 different nationalities responding to it was what was unique. There were so many more catchphrases coined during the rally. 20 minutes was another mantra. Anyone asking for a loo break or when the next stop would be told 20 minutes. It's strange how small things like these bond a group and are the things that will remain imprinted in their memories for time to come.
I'm afraid the convoy will break up if I start singing.
What will definitely remain imprinted on all our memories are the Filipino group bards, breaking into song every morning and at any other time they felt the convoy was too quiet. Part was their line-to-line translation of the love songs. The group was bonding well, and dinner tables that had started country-wise soon became mixed, and notes were exchanged on everything from driving routes to cars to food to much more. The long days were becoming shorter and shorter with the building camaraderie, and people came out early even when the call time was 5 a.m., just looking forward to the day ahead.
This team is a very disciplined team, and I'm very happy the choice has been made depending upon their capability to drive.
The first reason why we did this was this is the 10th year of the India-ASEAN Summit and the 20th year of India-ASEAN Dialogue. It was a way to celebrate something that we have done over the last 10 years, which is strengthen India-ASEAN relations to a very large extent, both politically, economically, trade, culturally, and now the connectivity issue. So this is basically a celebration of the achievements we have done over the last 10 years, as well as to show that actually there is a connection between India and ASEAN. that it's not that it's some outside place, it's an immediate neighbor, it's somebody with whom we have very close relations with.
The day's break in Siem Reap was much needed for the tough and long travel days ahead. And Siem Reap to Phnom Penh saw us having to cross a 1,000-year-old bridge, Kampong Kadai. It was built by King Jayavarman VI in the late 12th century. But that really wasn't the highlight of the day. It was more the lunch at Solar Cafe, where the local delicacies were on the menu.
Okay, I'm going for this. I might die, but nevertheless I'm going to try. Not bad, tastes like chevra. Quite good, but I don't think I have the courage to go for the middle.
After the delectable lunch at Solar Cafe, with most stomachs churning, the convoy set off for Phnom Penh. At this point, we had covered just about 3,000 kilometers. And though apart from the Indians, no one had really driven the XUV 500s before, after this much time, they seemed quite taken up by it.
We are surprised how comfortable and powerful the Mahindra XUV 500 is. It's a wonderful car.
He feels enjoy it, and he feels very comfortable car for him for on the road. It's nice car.
Absolutely superb. Yeah, I want to recommend to my country also to take this Mahindra car to our country.
I heard that the price is only 22,000 US dollar. It means if you the car is very cheap.
The cars were doing well, and even the few niggling issues that cropped up were attended to immediately by the expert Mahindra crew at the short breaks wherever they were.
Two gentlemen from different zones of the country, south, west and north, came for this event. They were the best when it comes to XUV. They had done the Kotak courses. They were engineers and they were mechanics, and they didn't mind getting their hands dirty. That's the most important thing. There was no attitude, and they knew their job, and when the cars came in every day evening, they were ready with the stuff which need to be done.
Whilst the rallyists were traversing through these nations, high-powered functions with team leaders, sponsors and dignitaries all along the way were spreading the message at a different level too.
2015 we're going to have the Asian Economic Community coming up, and we also have a trilateral group between India, Myanmar and Thailand, and this group is working towards making sure that there is full road connectivity between the three countries. That's going to connect Manipur in India down to Mae Sot, which is the Thai border, through Myanmar, and all countries are currently building their portions of the highway. India has already built 182 kilometers, and we've also invested $257 million. We're upgrading 71 new bridges in Myanmar, and we have given a grant in aid to Myanmar government, out of which they're utilizing $100 million to build their side of the trilateral highway, or their portion of the trilateral highway. The Thais equally are building 82 kilometers from their border into Myanmar. Why is it important? Because it's going to link up with various corridors which are coming up once AEC comes into force, maybe before that. For Thailand, it's extremely important because it's going to connect the port cities on the western seaboard onto the eastern seaboard. And it'll eventually mean that all these routes are going to crisscross each other, making it extremely easy for people-to-people movement, and also very easy to move container traffic. Naturally, it's going to lead to increased trade and investment between our countries, and this is what we aim to do. This rally is symbolic of that connectivity which will happen in a few years' time. This century is supposed to be Asia's century, and unless we create the necessary infrastructure, we create the connectivity by road, by sea and by air, we cannot achieve that objective.
We think it's a very lucrative market for us, especially given our tires and given where our branding is. And that's why we look at this market as a whole, thinking it's a growing market for us, good brand position, good as in the sense is because of the road conditions and the cars that you get over here, it'll suit our product very well.
After Phnom Penh, the convoy made its way to Ho Chi Minh City, crossing yet another border into Vietnam.
ASEAN India Car Rally has only one stop in Vietnam, and that is Ho Chi Minh City. Bit of a washout at the moment, as you see, but we are at the Reunification Palace. It's a beautiful, beautiful city, and what a welcome we had when we came in.
I had traversed this road 8 years ago and was stupefied to see the narrow country dirt roads replaced by wide-laned highways, and the center of the city that had looked like a market now looking like Times Square, New York. The historic Hotel Rex was our night halt, and we all paid homage to the martyrs at the memorial in front of it before checking in.
Xin chào is how they say hello in Vietnamese. I've picked up a couple of words here in the last day, but at the moment it's bye-bye for me. We're at the border and I'm about to cross over into Cambodia. Thought I'd take a little souvenir, one of the dancers' hats.
December 7th would be remembered not only because of the rain or because we had covered approximately half distance, but more importantly as the day we had breakfast in Vietnam, lunch in Cambodia and dinner in Lao PDR. Truly an international lot. How many people in the world can boast of having had 3 meals of a day in 3 different countries, that too covered by road? In times ago, a caravan would have taken months to do what we had in a day. So much had changed. But the fact that this convoy was on the road spreading a message to further improve connectivity and shorten the distances between these countries meant that there was still a lot more to be done. The memorable day ended in Pak Se in Lao PDR. After the night halt in Pak Se, we headed to Savannah Cave, visiting the World Heritage Site of the Wat Phu Temple en route. Wat Phu means temple in the mountain, and I can vouch for the fact that that's just what it is. The complex, built east-west, extends 14 kilometers up the slope and is at an elevation of about 100 meters.
I've been away from home for about 15 days at this point, but it really doesn't feel like that long. You know, I've made so many friends. Every day seems to be flying by. There's just so much to absorb and take in. There is no other way to see the world. You have to do it by road. You see the people, you see the cultures. There's so many interesting things along the way which you would miss if you just flew by them. Well, we're almost at the halfway mark now, and I'm in the beautiful, beautiful locale of Wat Phu in the Lao PDR. Now, this temple over here is said to be dated even further back than the Angkor Wat. I'm looking forward to go and see it, but what I'm not looking forward to is the 70 steps I've been told I have to climb in the searing heat. Did it! And I've survived!
There's a calm and serenity in the main sanctuary that allows you to catch your breath. But it's really the view from the top that erases the pain of the climb. Day 14 saw the convoy undertake another long run from Savannah Khet to the capital of Lao, Vientiane. It's a charming cosmopolitan city where we were felicitated at the 3-layer gilded stupa.
year 2004, when they had ASEAN summit here, the first car rally was flagged off from here by Prime Minister of India. But you see, there has been a subtle difference in the car rally the last time and this year, in the sense that there is more people-to-people involvement here, and it has, the people at the grassroots level are more actively involved this time compared to last time, because last time it was more protocol-oriented and it was more officious. But this time I think the enthusiasm of people and the entire government spectrum is fully involved and actively participating in it.
I'm in Phitsanulok, Thailand, where there's yet another welcome ceremony happening for us, and this has been the spirit the whole journey. People have been welcoming us with open arms. It's the spirit of ASEAN, people coming together, the connectivity. Unfortunately for me, Sukhothai, 55 kilometers from here, is going to be the last stop. I've done over 5,000 kilometers on this rally, but my bags are packed and I'm ready to go. Unfortunately, I really don't want to leave. I'm going to miss out on Myanmar. It's a very exciting part of the rally. And the fact that, I've become so connected with all the participants over here. It's become like one big family. And I'm really feeling heavy-hearted to leave. But for you guys, Hormuz is going to continue this journey. He's going to be going through Myanmar. And he's going to bring the rest of the journey to you.
Thanks, Renuka. Yeah, as you said, Myanmar is going to be a very exciting part of the journey, and that's something everyone's really looking forward to. And of course, the thrill of driving back home into India, crossing that border at Moreh and coming back home. I think that's also going to be very special. But I think the next couple of days are going to be very exciting. Myanmar is a fascinating country. We've been there in 2004. There's lots to see. It's very picturesque. The people there, of course, are very welcoming too. So really, a very exciting part of the rally still ahead.
Vientiane is so close to Thailand that one can often pick up Thai telecom signals. And Visut, the Thai team leader, told us if we swam across the river from our hotel, we would be in Thailand. But road junkies that we were, we preferred our four wheels. The crossover into Thailand over the Friendship Bridge and driving on its big highways was quite welcome. Sukhothai, meaning the dawn of happiness and the capital of the first kingdom of Siam, was our night halt. The temple of Sukhothai, lit up at night, made for one of the most spectacular evenings of the trip. And everyone had their eyes riveted to the performance of the light and sound show. The night was made more magical by the wish lanterns we floated into the sky. Those myriads of little lights carried but one big wish: to continue this journey forever. Alas, for me, the time had come to leave. As the rally entered Myanmar, it hit the mountains and probably the worst section of road so far. It didn't even qualify as a road anymore, just a series of craters. The cars had to navigate a narrow stretch that is one way on alternate days normally. But even with all the traffic stopped, it took 3 hours to cross a mere 50 kilometers. A far cry from 853 kilometers at an average speed of 77 in Thailand. But the bad roads were soon forgotten with the warmth and hospitality of the local people. Myanmar film stars who were a part of our group, with their easygoing nature, punctuality and no fuss attitude, had not allowed us to gauge how famous they really were in their own country. But as the convoy got mobbed at each destination, we realized that and felt a different sense of respect for them. They had borne all the long hours and kept the discipline without any fuss at all. First night's halt was in Naypyidaw, meaning Royal City in the Sun. It's one of the strangest places in the world. In November of 2005, the generals who then ran Myanmar declared they'd built a new capital, 320 kilometers north of Yangon in the interior of the country. The city was cut off from the rest of the world with no international flights, no phone network, and foreigners were banned.